Most people do not fall behind all at once. They fall behind quietly, through bills that rise a little, balances that carry over one more month, repairs that cannot wait, and compromises that seem reasonable at the time. And then one day, a person looks at their paycheck and realizes something strange. The number is higher than it used to be. The income may look respectable. From the outside, life may even look stable. But inside the household, the feeling is different. There is less room, less margin, less confidence, less peace. That is the quiet question many Americans are asking themselves now. Why am I making more money than before, but feeling less secure? For decades, the promise of middle-class life was built around a simple idea. If you worked hard, stayed responsible, paid your bills, and earned a little more over time, life would gradually become easier. Maybe not rich, maybe not effortless, but more stable, more predictable, more yours. You would buy a home if you could, save something for retirement, keep a little money aside for emergencies, help your children when possible. And after enough years of effort, you would expect to feel less afraid of the future, not more. But for many Americans in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and early 70s, that promise feels harder to hold on to. The paycheck may be larger than it was 10 or 20 years ago. The household may not look poor, the bills may still be getting paid. But the sense of progress has weakened. This is the new middle-class trap. It is not always obvious. It does not always look like crisis. Sometimes, the trap is appearing comfortable while feeling uncertain. A home or apartment, a car in the driveway, a retirement account that exists but does not feel large enough, a credit card balance that keeps surviving from one month to the next, a grocery receipt that feels heavier than it should, a medical bill that arrives at the wrong moment, an insurance premium that rises without asking whether the family is ready. Little by little, more of the paycheck is already spoken for before it even arrives. According to the research, real median household income was about $83,730 in 2024. On paper, that can sound like progress. Many Americans are working, earning, and doing what they were told to do. But income alone does not explain what life feels like inside a household. The real question is not only how much money comes in, it is how much remains after the unavoidable costs have taken their share. That is where the pressure begins. For many households, housing is the first and largest weight. For renters, the burden is especially clear. Census data showed that nearly half of renter households were cost-burdened in 2023, meaning they spent more than 30% of their income on housing. That represented more than 21 million renter households. For those families, rent is not simply a monthly payment. It becomes the wall every other financial goal has to climb over. For homeowners, the pressure may look different, but it does not disappear. A fixed mortgage can create some stability, but it does not freeze the cost of owning a home. Property taxes can rise, insurance can rise, utilities can rise. Repairs arrive on their own schedule: a roof, a furnace, a water heater, a plumbing problem, or a major appliance can turn a stable-looking home into a source of quiet financial stress. Then come the daily costs. In April 2026, the Consumer Price Index was up 3.8% from a year earlier. Shelter was up 3.3%, food was up 3.2%, energy was up 17.9%. These numbers may sound abstract, but families do not experience inflation as a chart. They experience it at the grocery store, at the gas pump, in the utility bill, and in the moment when a familiar purchase suddenly feels harder to justify. A raise can disappear this way, not because someone wasted it, not because one dramatic mistake was made, but because rent takes part of it. Groceries take part of it, insurance takes part of it, healthcare takes part of it, debt payments take part of it. And by the time the household has paid for ordinary life, the extra income is gone. What many people miss is that the real problem is not always the bill itself. It is the loss of breathing room. Financial security is not just paying this month's bills. It is being able to handle a surprise without panic. It is knowing that a $400 emergency will not send the household backward. It is feeling that retirement is not drifting farther away with every year. It is having enough flexibility to recover from a repair, a medical expense, a family need, or a bad month without turning every problem into another payment. The Federal Reserve found that only 35% of non-retirees said their retirement savings were on track. That means many people are not simply wondering how to afford this month. They are wondering whether the future they planned for is still realistic. The same research found that 63% of adults could cover a $400 emergency using cash or its equivalent. That still leaves many adults who would need to borrow, sell something, or make some other adjustment for a relatively small surprise. This is where the story becomes deeper than inflation. Because prices are only one part of the trap. The other part is what happens when households use debt to keep life steady. By the first quarter of 2026, household debt in the United States had reached $18.8 trillion. Mortgage balances alone were $13.19 trillion. Consumer credit continued to rise, and revolving credit, the category closely associated with credit cards, grew at a 10.4% annual rate in April 2026. At the same time, credit card interest had become more punishing. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau reported average annual percentage rates of about 25% for general-purpose credit cards and 31.3% for private label cards in 2024. Debt changes the meaning of income. Once a household carries expensive balances, part of every future paycheck no longer belongs to the future. It belongs to the past. It goes toward the emergency that already happened, the repair that could not wait, the medical bill that had to be paid, the groceries bought during a tight month, or the gap between what life cost and what income could cover. And this is where many households begin to lose control without noticing. The debt does not always begin with luxury. Often, it begins with maintenance, maintaining the car, maintaining the home, maintaining health, maintaining normal life, maintaining the appearance that everything is fine. A balance sits on a credit card, then it becomes a minimum payment. Then the minimum payment becomes part of the household routine. A little less goes to savings, a retirement contribution gets delayed. The emergency fund does not rebuild. Another bill arrives, another balance remains. At first, it may still feel manageable, but slowly, the household is not only paying for today, it is still paying for yesterday. That is how earning more can feel like falling behind. For Americans in their 40s and 50s, this can be especially unsettling because retirement is no longer far away. It is close enough to measure. There are only so many working years left to build savings, reduce debt, and prepare for future costs. A person in their 20s may have decades to recover from financial strain. A person at 55 does not have the same amount of time. For Americans in their 60s and 70s, the pressure can become even more personal. Some are retired. Some are still working by choice. Others are still working because the numbers do not feel safe enough. Social Security becomes more important, not less, and national discussions about its long-term finances can add another layer of unease. The fear is rarely loud. More often, it is private. Will this be enough? What happens if costs keep rising? What happens if there is a medical problem? What happens if I have to help family? What happens if I live longer than my savings can comfortably support? Healthcare sits at the center of that anxiety. Employer-sponsored family health premiums reached nearly $27,000 in 2025, according to reporting based on KFF data. Even when employers cover a significant portion, the overall cost is a reminder that staying insured, treated, and financially stable is not cheap. For older Americans, medical costs are not theoretical. They are prescriptions, appointments, deductibles, premiums, tests, and bills that often arrive when the margin is already thin. The most dangerous part of this trap is that life can still look normal while the foundation weakens. The car is still running, the lights are still on, the bills are mostly paid, the family may still gather for holidays, still buy groceries, still show up to work, still appear stable from the outside. But behind that normal life, savings may be thin, retirement may be behind, credit may be carrying more weight than anyone wants to admit, and the household may be one surprise away from a decision it did not want to make. This is why financial stress carries so much shame. People look around and assume everyone else is doing better. They see neighbors, coworkers, relatives, and friends who appear comfortable. But appearance does not show the credit card balance. It does not show the medical bill on the kitchen counter. It does not show the retirement account that feels too small. It does not show the quiet calculation someone makes before opening the mail. The data suggests that the pressure is widespread. Housing burdens are widespread. Household debt is widespread. Retirement uncertainty is widespread. Discomfort with emergency savings is widespread. That does not mean every family faces the same struggle. But it does mean the feeling of being squeezed is not imaginary. Picture a fictional couple, Mark and Denise, in their late 50s. They earn more than they once did. They have worked for decades. From the outside, they look like they should be nearing a comfortable retirement, but their mortgage escrow rises. Auto insurance costs more, groceries take more. Medical expenses require more planning. Their retirement savings exist, but they do not feel complete. They are not broke, they are not careless. But they are not as secure as they expected to be at this stage of life. Or picture Angela, a fictional 49-year-old renter. She works full-time. She has received raises. She is not trying to live extravagantly, but rent, food, energy, and credit card interest keep absorbing the gains. Every year she earns a little more, yet the possibility of owning a home feels farther away. One emergency becomes a balance. One balance becomes a payment. And the payment becomes part of life. Then there is Robert, a fictional 66-year-old who thought he might be ready to retire. But a car loan, prescription costs, and helping family changed the math. Now he wonders whether working longer is the only realistic path. The weight of that realization is not just financial, it is emotional. It is the quiet disappointment of doing so much right and still feeling unfinished. These people are fictional, but the pressures behind them are not. And that is the deeper meaning of earning more and owning less. Ownership is not only about property. It is about time, choices, peace of mind, the ability to absorb a surprise, the ability to say no, the ability to rest, the ability to believe that the future is not already claimed by payments. When fixed costs and debt grow faster than security, people may have more dollars passing through their lives, but less control over them. A higher paycheck can hide a weaker cushion. A respectable income can hide fragile cash flow. A normal-looking life can hide a quiet loss of freedom. That is why the old question, "How much do you make?" is no longer enough. A better question may be, how much of your income still belongs to you after life takes its share? Because a paycheck is not security by itself. A raise is not security by itself. Even a good income can feel disappointing if nearly every dollar already has a destination. The point is not to panic. It is not to blame one person, one bill, one generation, or one decision. And it is not to pretend there is a simple answer that fits every household. The truth is more serious than that. Financial security today may depend less on appearances and more on resilience, less on looking stable and more on having room to absorb stress, less on the income number alone, and more on the relationship between income, obligations, debt, savings, health, and time. For many Americans, the warning is not that they failed. The warning is that stability has become harder to protect. The cost of staying housed, insured, mobile, healthy, and prepared for retirement has grown heavier. And when those costs rise together, even responsible people can feel trapped. So, when someone wonders why more income still does not feel like progress, the answer may not be weakness. It may not be laziness. It may not be failure. It may be that too much of modern middle-class life is built around payments that quietly reduce freedom. A household can work hard, earn more, and still feel behind if the money has nowhere to rest. And maybe that is the quiet truth at the center of this new middle-class trap. Financial progress is not measured only by what comes in. It is measured by what remains, what grows, and what still belongs to you when the bills are paid.